So, folks, we've almost come to the concluding part of English language teaching, the different the methods and approaches uh, which are being widely used across the globe in the process of language teaching, especially in the case of second language, and that too uh, in the case of English. So we have come across the direct methodology, the grammar translation methodology, and then the community classroom. So it's a kind of, people are still doing, or researchers are still into, finding out the right mode of teaching English language. So we, in a sense, that we are using sometimes in India, especially in the case of India, the teachers of India are using a mixture of hybrid variety, hybrid methods are being used for teaching English language for the students, the Indian learners of English language. So sometimes, at times, you can see that our teachers are using the direct method. Sometimes they mix it together, the direct method and the grammar translation together. And at times, very rarely, you can see that the community classroom method is also applied in India. But besides that, we have some other methods as well. Like, there is something called the bilingual method of foreign language teaching or English language teaching in general. And there's another one which is called the audiovisual method, which is most common these days, by the way. So, when talking about the bilingual method of ELT, it's kind of, it was started very early, like during the initial stages of researches of applying different kind of methods and approaches in English language teaching, which happened in the early 60s and the 70s. It was introduced by Mr. C.J. Dodson, who who was an active teacher and an active researcher. He was an active researcher who propounded various theories on the different methods of acquiring or different methods of teaching English language, especially in the case of Asian students. So it was, we can consider it as a counterpart to the audiovisual method as well, which we'll take a look at in the audiovisual method in a later video. So it's kind of, it is in it's, well, one way we can call it a counterpart. On the other hand, you can say we can call it a refined method of you know audiovisual method. The bilingual is a refined method of audiovisual method, and at the same time you can call it a mixture of direct and the grammar translation method. It's a kind of, a sandwich approach, in which you have the direct method on the one side, and the other side you have the grammar translation. So it's kind of a mixture, a hybrid, a blended variety of language teaching is being used here in the bilingual method. And additionally, I should say that we should understand that the traditional approach of teaching, the traditional approach in the sense that traditional teaching approaches, or the traditional different stages of language lesson are, you call it, the three traditional P's. The three traditional P's include presentation, practice, and production. Presentation, practice, and production. So in presentation, what you can call it, it's in these days in the TEFL and the TESOL classes, presentation is very much imminent. The teachers are using it in a whole lot of context. You can find a lot of presentations there in the TESOL TEFL classes. So what the presentation is actually meant to English language teachers or English language students is that, presentation is kind of, you are creating, or you are giving a chance or opportunity for the students or the learners to understand the context. The initial stage in a class, say for example it's a 45 minutes class or a 40 minutes class, the initial stage, the initial 10 minutes, you can introduce the context. For the initial 5 minutes, at least the 5 minutes, you have to introduce the context. As a teacher, you have to introduce the context to the learners. The context, in the sense, the area, the topic in which you are going to deal with. So that's the context. There are different ways in which you can introduce the context. You can introduce the context using a conversation, a normal conversation with the students, a communication, or some kind of showing them a movie clip, or asking them to listen to a music, or some type of different contexts are being used in terms of presentation during the initial stages of language lesson, a language class. The second part is a kind of practice. So after presentation comes practice. Practice is that you need to drag the context to the students, to the learners, in the right manner, with accuracy. That's more important. With accuracy, you have to bring in, or you have to drag in the context to the learners. That is practice. So after presentation, here comes practice. And the last one is production. The production, in the sense that the learners have to respond to you back in the right sense in which you expected, because you have introduced the topic there, and you have given them a chance to practice it fluently in the class, and at the end it is the student's responsibility, the learner's responsibility to respond to you back with the exact outcome, with the learning outcome. So there ends the three P's, the three P's. With the three P's, you will have a final conclusion. You've entered into the final conclusion of your chapter, your lesson, your language lesson. That's more important. These days it's been used widely in the TESOL TEFL classes. So as I mentioned before, in the presentations, you can use, you can tell, or you can act. Sometimes as a teacher, you can act in front of the students. You can explain to them a real life short story, or an anecdote to them, audio clip, a short movie, something like that, newspaper cutting, something that is related to the day, in fact. And if you want bring in their attention on some problems, some issues, some political issues, some of the other kind of cultural, social issues which is happening in your area, that can be also kind of bring into the attention of the students. That's very effective. That's a very effective system, or a method that can be widely used in schools for your kids, for the children, actually, for the school students. The kids who are listening to these things, they will have a fair bit of idea about what's happening around the world, and they will understand it. They will listen to the news clipping, maybe. They will listen to the story. They will listen to the anecdote which you have mentioned, and then they will start responding to that particular topic. That is how it works. It is one of the practical approaches in English language teaching. The aim of this particular approach, or the bilingual approach, is actually to understand the context. The students should understand the context, and they have to respond to you in the proper manner. And there is one more thing that you should understand, is that there are certain principles of the bilingual method. The approach here in bilingual, as the term directly or straight away, it means like that. You have to include or incorporate your mother tongue as well. It's a mixture of L1 and L2. Again, the grammar translation method is applied here, as I mentioned before. So the understanding of words and sentences in a target language, which it can be made easier if you can apply using the L1, the mother tongue. That is a traditional system. That's a traditional system which we cannot accept as such for our school students, especially. It's kind of, we are showing them not the right way. We are showing them the wrong way of understanding. Just in case if they understand English language through their mother tongue or L1, then definitely they won't develop the skill of thinking. So without the skill of thinking, you won't be able to speak out, or you won't be able to express language in the right sense. So that is one of the drawbacks, as I should say. It's my personal viewpoint. And there is another principle that the bilingual teachers are using, is that there is no need to create kind of artificial situations for explaining the meaning of words. As we have mentioned in the direct, we've came across the direct method in which we found that the teachers have to create some kind of they have to create some kind of artificial situations within the class. But here it's not kind of artificial situations. No, we need to bring in the attention. We need to bring in the kind of attention from the students to a real life situation, real life problem, some kind of cultural, social problems or economic problems, something that is happening around them. So they might be more of they might be showing a lot of interest in responding to that kind of situations. And there is another thing that you should understand is that the students basically will become functional bilinguals, as I mentioned before. The principle of translating from one language to another language, or the mother tongue, or you're using your mother tongue for translation, for explaining the meanings of the target language, will make the students functional bilinguals, because when it comes to their classrooms also, when they become teachers also, they will also do it like that, because they never would like to think in English and speak out, or think in English, and they will never try to understand the meaning in English, and they will never try to explain or deliver the meaning to the students in English language. That is definitely a drawback. And there is something that you should understand, is that it's kind of the students will have a love of a passion towards other languages in this manner. That's what the researchers in this bilingual methodology saying, because when you have the aid or help of your language, your mother tongue, in order to understand a different language, then the students, the learners, will develop a passion or love towards other language, which personally I don't believe, because as we have mentioned before, you need to create a situation within the classroom in direct method. That is much more applicable when it comes to learning a new language, because you need to be exposed to uh, the the real situation in which you encounter on a later stage. So that would be kind of practical approach, rather than using this kind of translation method. And there is another thing, that the students uh, will have a lot of accessibility to understand the language, because the thing is that they can easily ask doubts. They can easily discuss many things with their fellow students, or with their teachers, in the sense that they can use their language. They will never show any kind of stage fright. They will never show any kind of shyness in front of the teachers, or in front of the fellow students or classmates, so that they can freely approach them. They can freely think in their language, their L1, and they'll try to express in L1, as in, this is the some kind of these are some of the principles, or the approaches or the different kind of methods within bilingual methodology. And there is the teachers. Um, when it happens that the teachers will make a lot of will make use of a lot of L1 within the classroom. 90% will be in L1, the mother tongue. So, which actually boosts the morale of the students to speak out in both their L1 and L2. Probably there is a chance that they might miss out certain grammatical rules and the etiquettes of language in that sense. So, what bilingual education or bilingual teachers are actually modeling the goal of students to develop into users of two languages. So that is the ultimate aim actually, bilingual in the sense that the students should be, the learners should be able to understand and use both the languages. They need to be, they need to flourish in their L1 and L2. That is the purpose of this bilingual method of language, English language teaching, which on a later stage, because this has been these days this kind is being used in a large manner in the schools in India, which probably will develop a kind of a negative approach within the students, within the learners, when they reach a stage wherein they need to express freely their own thoughts and their own thoughts, their own ideologies, their own passions freely towards the society. This method, which has been applied in the middle part of their language learning process, might lead to difficulty, confusion among the students, or to where to apply which part of language, what is to be used here, when to use. The situation is tensed. They might feel like it is very difficult for me to understand language. To grasp the meaning of language will become a common problem among these students. Sometimes it would be like the students will face a lot of difficulty in expressing in English language, because then they will never speak, they will never think in the L2 or English language here in our scenario. So if that is not happening, then how language is being produced in the right manner? Anyway, it's kind of we are learning a different language in order to understand and communicate it the proper manner, not in the sense that we need to speak out or we need to express as the native language users, but still we have to at least use some kind of approaches, some kind of the neutral sense of using language in all skills, all the core skills of language, especially in listening, speaking, reading, writing, and above all, the thinking skills. If you are able, as students, as learners, if you are able to understand and think language in the right manner, then nothing will be there in front of you as a hurdle, as an obstruction. So, for first language acquisition, bilingual in education, the L2 teaching, these are all part of language methods, or the part of language English language methods and approaches, which are widely used these days. But uh, as teachers, you are free to use your own method. You need to find out the right kind of attitude from the students. You need to understand your students first, and then you need to apply the right method to the students, to the learners. So that is the perfect way, or the right kind of approach to teach language skills to students. So you need to understand your students first. You need to understand their capability and capacity and the caliber of your students, and then you need to apply your method. You can mix it up, you can use the right method. It depends. You don't need to follow it as such, but you need to understand everything and apply the right thing, right method uh, in your classrooms, in amongst your learners. So let's see. We will have another session on the audiovisual method as well. So with that, we will conclude the sessions on ELT, the different methods and approaches in English language teaching. So after that, we will see what we can do. We'll do a practical mode of analyzing your skills, the depth of your understanding of methods and how you can apply it within your classrooms. We can do it in a practical manner. So have a good day. Thank you so much, and thanks for being good listeners.